Everybody, it is Monday, February 9th, and this is the update on Iran. I know we all think that we're just sitting around and waiting, but there is actually a lot happening. It is still a very dynamic and changing situation. So let's start with what's going on with Israel. Israel warns Trump, we may act alone if Iran crosses ballistic missile red line. We told the Americans we will strike alone if Iran crosses the red line we set on ballistic missiles, this senior source said. According to security sources, Israeli intentions to dismantle Iran's missile capabilities and production infrastructure were conveyed in recent weeks through a series of high-level exchanges. The military official said, we told the Americans we will strike alone if Iran crosses the red line we set on ballistic missiles. Okay, and this is a very important point. And it cannot be forgotten in all of the conversation that's going on right now about, what is Israel, what's the United States going to do? Is Trump going to make a deal? Is it only going to be about the nuclear? Let's make something very clear, okay? Israel's interests and the United States' interests are not identical. Of course, they overlap. They are close allies. They have close cooperation together. But that doesn't mean that their interests are the same. From Israel's perspective, the ballistic missiles are an existential threat. Yes, nuclear is an issue, and of course, Iran suffered tremendous damage to their nuclear program in the 12-day war, but Israel cannot tolerate this ballistic missile program. It cannot tolerate these proxies that have been killing Israelis for so many decades. The interests of the United States and Israel are not the same, and Israel is absolutely correct by saying, look, the United States can make whatever deal it wants, but that doesn't bind Israel, okay? We still have our national security concerns, and we are not bound by whatever deal the United States makes. So let me just bring this down to a real possibility. Let's say the United States makes a deal with Iran, and part of the deal is that the United States will guarantee that Israel doesn't do X, Y, and Z. They don't have the power to do that. They don't have the ability to do that. Israel has already shown, especially over the later part of this war since October 7th, that they're willing to act independently of what the United States wants. And this is a very important piece of messaging while all these negotiations are going on. And along with that, just to add to that mix, when Prime Minister Netanyahu goes to meet with President Trump this week, a very interesting change from the usual personnel who go to these White House meetings, he's bringing along with him the incoming commander of the Israeli Air Force. Incoming Israeli Air Force Chief Brigadier General Omer Tischler is expected to join Prime Minister Netanyahu on his trip to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. Okay. Normally, only the prime minister's military secretary and defense attaché would join him. And now he's bringing Tischler along with him. Tischler has been in some high-level meetings before. And like I said, he's taking over the Air Force. He also joined the IDF chief of staff at meetings at the Pentagon recently. Okay. So he's been involved in some of these high-level meetings. But this is significant, and it's also significant that it was leaked to the media that he's going to be there. So this is not just Prime Minister Netanyahu, having a photo op and a conversation with President Trump. He's bringing with him, again, the head of the Israeli Air Force. Okay, now, over on the Iran side of what they're up to now. So the regime is still in a state of panic about the potential fall of the regime. And we have this headline here, that crackdown on dissent after nationwide protests in Iran widens to ensnare reformist figures. Okay, so the reformist movement in Iran is a movement that has not really overtly tried to bring down the regime, but they're into having a more liberal, more open form of Islam. In fact, the current president, Masoud Pezeshkian, is actually part of that reformist movement. And so they've been arresting a lot of the leaders of the reformist movement now, meaning it's not just arresting protesters. And most notably, this hit the news just today, that Iranian Nobel laureate, Nobel Prize winner Narges Mohammadi has been handed 7.5 more years of prison time by an Iranian court. The human rights activist was sentenced to 6 years for, quote, gathering and collusion, and 1.5 years for propaganda activities by a court in the northeastern city of Mashhad. Mohammadi was arrested in December for making, quote, provocative remarks at a memorial ceremony, Iranian authorities said. At the time, her family said she was taken to hospital after being beaten during the arrest. The 53-year-old was made a Nobel laureate in 2023 for activism against the oppression of women in Tehran. So the regime, rather than going a little soft, maybe in advance of the talks with Trump, no, they are doubling down on their oppression and their repression of dissenting voices in the country. So even, like I said, even the reformists who have not necessarily been overtly hostile to the regime or overtly calling for the regime to fall, they're now also getting arrested across the country. Now, also in Iran, in Tehran, in the capital city of Iran, there is a public square that they call Palestine Square. And the regime tends to use Palestine Square as a place to put up big billboards and messaging to threaten Israel or to talk trash about Israel, for lack of a better term. So look at this. Tehran mural depicts potential strike targets in Tel Aviv. So in Palestine Square yesterday, here's what they did. They put up a mural, which is a map of Israel. This picture here that you see is a map of the central part of Israel. There's the Mediterranean coast, like Tel Aviv is around there. And look what it says here. A large mural displaying a map of potential targets in Tel Aviv's metropolitan area has been unveiled in Tehran's Palestine Square. Hebrew language text appears on the mural that says on it, facing a rain of missiles, this is a small area. And alongside that is the English slogan that says, you start, we finish it. So it's this threatening mural, flexing their muscles, threatening the Israelis. Now, on the side of the Iranian public, you might think that the protests are gone, people are in their homes, but let's recall, and I've pointed this out a few times, that the reasons for the protests, what sparked the protests, the economic collapse of the country and the fact that people don't have money and their currency is worthless and they don't have water, this has not gone away. So as we read in this article here, Iran is on the brink as citizens call for nationwide day of rage on February 17th and 18th. So that's coming up next week, towards the end of next week. There is a call for more protests. With the grand bazaars set to shutter and the rial collapsing, merchants and activists unite for a historic strike. Okay, now let me explain how significant this is. The bazaar owners who started the protests, who were really the backbone of this wave of protests, this was the first time over the last couple decades that the bazaar owners were really driving the protests or greatly participating in them, because they tend to be more Muslim and more aligned with the regime. So that's part of the reason why these protests were so much more impactful than past protests. It wasn't just that the regime is weaker because of the 12-day war. It's also because this was driven by economics, and the driving force was the shop owners of the bazaar. And now the shop owners of the bazaar are calling for another round of protests. And that's very interesting. Here it says here, traditional merchants, bazaris in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, as well as markets in Tabriz, Isfahan, and Rasht have now committed to a total shutdown. Beyond the bazaar's, labor unions and oil and petrochemical sectors have signaled they may join the February 17th strike, which would effectively freeze the Iranian economy. Because if the bazaars and the labor unions shut down, and everyone working in the oil sector, which is really what brings in the revenue to the regime, it means a total shutdown of the economy. Okay, so that is huge. So put that on your calendar, the 17th and 18th. So this lull in the protests, regardless of what America does between now and then, even if America keeps sitting on its hands and doing nothing, there is going to be another wave of protests, and they know that that there's going to be the internet crackdown and possibly more deaths. But look what it says here. To prevent another Black Weekend news leak, the regime is reportedly preparing a total telecommunications blackout. testing a new localized internet system to cut citizens off from the global web. In addition, the judiciary has warned that any merchant participating in the Day of Rage strikes will face permanent seizure of their business licenses. Okay, so here's what's planned. February 16th, Eve of Rage, rooftop chanting and localized protests. February 17th, day one of the strike, total closure of grand bazaars, memorials for the 40th day, meaning of the original massacres. And day two of the strike, nationwide marches and potential clashes for the IRGC. So this is what to look for, because the strike and the rooftop chanting doesn't involve people going out into the street. But on February 18th, on day two of the strike, when they start hitting the streets, that's when they're basically challenging the regime. Go ahead, commit more atrocities, come after us, and that's where they're really risking their lives. And that is coming next week, and we'll bring you updates on how that is being talked about in the days leading up to it. As for support around the world, yesterday in England, outside the Iranian embassy, there was a massive pro-Persian people, anti-regime demonstration. And take a look at this footage. You'll notice in the crowd, there are both traditional Iranian flags and Israeli flags being held by the crowd. Take a look at this footage. And this is yesterday in the United Kingdom, in England. The Israeli flags here and the Iranian flags. And this is really something that must drive the left crazy, because, here are people protesting against oppression by Muslims. They're pro-Trump, they're pro-Israel, they're pro-America, they're pro-West, and they're demonstrating for their freedom, which of course speaks to the whole hypocrisy of the left not supporting the protesters. Anyway, so that's where things stand. My big point in today's update is that what feels like a lull while negotiations are going on, there's a lot happening beneath the surface. Just to sum up, the regime is further cracking down on any dissenting voices, adding this prison sentence for this Nobel laureate who's been fighting for women's rights. The Israelis are signaling, as they see the United States maybe looking for an off-ramp and maybe looking to make a deal only on the nuclear, the Israelis are putting it out there that Israel is willing to take its own military action if the U.S. does not, against the ballistic missiles. And of course, the other issues that Israel is concerned about, the ballistic missiles and the proxies, those are the big issues for Israel. Israel is willing to take action. They already do take action against the proxies, but they're saying they're willing to strike the ballistic missile sites regardless of whatever deal the United States makes. And that's huge. And of course, the big news, which is that the Iranian people are planning another round of protests and shutting down the economy. So this is far from over, even separate from the question of what the United States is going to do. Okay, that's the Iran update for today. Let's keep following this, and I'll try to keep you updated, try to pull together various headlines and news items that could just give you in a few minutes what is actually going on with this whole Iran situation. I hope you're enjoying these videos. I hope you're finding them useful. Please make sure to like and share and subscribe and do all that good stuff. And also, as always, please check out all the content we're putting up at the Israel 365 News YouTube channel. God bless.